Hi there, it's Ginger Bell. Today is Friday, April 10th, and welcome to this episode of Flatten the Curve, Not the Spirit. Happy Good Friday, happy Passover, happy Easter. And boy, what a time in history. So today, as of today, there are over 478,000 confirmed coronavirus cases in the United States. We have 17,919 deaths, but we have 26,000 that have recovered. So continue to stay home, shelter in place, have a blessed weekend, and enjoy time with your family. Do virtual calls, and here's a big virtual hug from you and from my friend, Christina Beckwith, who is my very special guest today. So have a great weekend, and we'll see you on Monday. Well, hi, welcome to the next episode of Flatten the Curve, Not the Spirit. And today I'm here with my good friend, Christine Beckwith, who is coming from the other side of the country. And so it's good to see you virtually. And thanks for hopping on. And the whole goal in doing this was to be able to really just share insight, what you're doing, what you're seeing, how you're staying positive, because you do so much of that in your coaching. So I'm really excited to have you share some of your tips. So first of all, what are you doing to take care of you?
Yeah, so I'm making sure that all the fundamentals are happening. But first, thank you for having me and choosing me as one of the people to share some advice right now during this very important time. Um, I think we all have a mutual cause in trying to inform and educate. We always have, and now more than ever. And so I'm taking all the precautions. I always treat myself kind of like I always say, the airplane, put your oxygen mask on
Right.
first. As a coach, I'm responsible for a lot of people's, well-beings and vision, pun intended, I guess, of where they're going. And so I have a bedtime curfew that I impose upon myself. I try to eat a healthy diet. I try to exercise. I try to live an example of what I say, is good health. And I don't just say that. I went to school for sports medicine and nutrition. And so it's played a big role in my life. And I think there's a reason athletes, have to be in good shape. There's a reason that, when you look at really successful people, a lot of times there's a whole lifestyle image that occurs in the way that they're living to draw on that energy and live that positive life,
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So having a curfew, working out, those are things for me too, to just really do that. Just getting up in the morning and making sure I'm working out, and we're all working out at home now. So it's like,
Yep.
okay, plug in the Pilates tape and, it's bend and stretch or going for a walk or, whatever it is, just getting that break as far as being able to take care of yourself. And I love the analogy as far as, put your oxygen mask on first and then take care of everyone else from there.
Yep.
So, one of the things I think in doing that is finding happiness too and being able to share that. And you do a lot of that in the messages, your videos, talking about your son. And, I think it's important, especially with, kids, to be able to answer their questions, but make them feel comfortable. And we don't have all the answers. And, is it okay to say, hey, I don't have all the answers?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I constantly telling myself this. So, I try not to be hypocritical, but long ago when I was deciding to be a coach, I thought, well, what is my, branding? What is my image? What am I going to be? Who am I going to be? And it's kind of funny when you start something like this, because I suppose there's a lot of coaches out there that decide to put on a certain image of branding, like I'm this guy or I'm that guy or girl. And for me, I had this great mentor in marketing who said to me, because I was worried about my edginess, like tend to drop a F-bomb now and then. I tend to,
I don't think we can be in this industry without having a certain edginess.
Yeah, I have that kind of country girl, but I ride a Harley.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that was hidden during the banking era. And this is not to offend any bankers that I love, love, love. But there's a lot of khaki wearing bankers out there. And I was not I was not that
You
girl.
weren't the blue pinstripe suit.
No. And so I said, my marketing mentor, who now is my chief marketing officer and who also edited my books, said to me, you have something different to offer. There's a lot of coaches in the industry that look the part. They look like a banking coach. And you are not that person, so don't try to be that person. And what was interesting is I had been a banker, correspondent, lender, broker for 30 years. So I was one of them, but I
Right.
was just kind of a different personality. So I try very much to be authentic. I raised my son with this, I think a lot of parents do this today, but a very real exposure to the world. Of course, I say this because I've had people push back and say, oh my God, when he was 7, 8, 9 years old, I would let him see more adult things at a ratio than kids his age. But as he grew, he's now 14, he pretty much sees all the adult stuff, the news. We let him watch above his age level movies and
Right.
gaming and things like that. And my mantra and reason is that I've done a lot of studying. I've had some girlfriends, unfortunately, that have had tragedies with their children and lost some children, lost some of their sons. I have one girlfriend who lost 2 out of 3 of her sons to drug addiction.
Wow.
And they had the most loving environment
Right.
and raised them the very, very good life. And these kids, however, she would admit, kind of were sheltered, and they had a lot of rules, and it was strict, and they protected them from this big bad world. And when they got out in there, they couldn't wait to get in the mix of everything, because it was like that restrained feeling for 18 years, she thinks. And I think there's something to it. So maybe
Oh,
it's just that,
absolutely. I agree
right? I think
100%. Yep.
it's that
That you
influence.
cannot have, you're going to go after. And it's not that you want to give them that, but
Right.
kids need to, and it's one of those things. And we did the same thing with our son too. It's like, okay, you have to start making decisions. And if you're going to decide to eat the entire bowl of candy, guess what you're going to
Yes.
have? A stomach ache. But that's your
Yeah.
decision, and there's going to be consequences for it, rather than us saying, okay, you can only have one piece. You can only have one piece.
Yeah.
It
There's a
is a
big
different
difference.
world. And for kids, it's for parents, it's new. For kids, it's new. And we were our neighbors across the street. I think their son is in 7th grade. And so Saturday night they said, oh, we're going to have some friend, a couple and their 2 girls over and sit outside, and everybody, because it was beautiful weather, would just sit outside and have a drink, have a cocktail. And
Yeah.
so they came over, we joined them, we were all the appropriate 6 feet apart. And the kids were riding bicycles just in, the neighborhood in the street. And all I kept hearing is 6 feet, 6 feet. It's like, oh my gosh, these kids, this is what they're growing up with, this whole 6-foot pandemic that
Yeah.
is a distancing.
But
So
that's a real reality.
it
And I think,
is. And so, yes, they have to do that. And let them know what the consequences are. So it's that combination of protecting and letting them know and informing them, but then also, giving them those opportunities to relax and, to be kids as well during a time like this. And whatever that is within your own home, whether it's playing games, whether it's, we actually, I don't have kids at home, although I have my mother-in-law at home, which is kind of like having 10 kids sometimes. But we went and got a Switch, and we're playing Jeopardy and things like that. So I think that those kind of things are important, and you're so good about doing that.
yeah, yeah, creating an environment where there's fun and, trying to create things like tonight we're watching a new comedy that's coming out. And we're making it, and I'm cooking a really nice dinner. Well, we're all home, right? So I'm cooking dinner. I'm cooking dinner every day, but I'm making it extra special tonight. And so it's like a thing. It's like a date. Corey's somewhere
Right.
in the house right now doing work. Jagger's in another place doing homeschooling. I'm here doing this. And then we're all going to meet in the living room and have the show and dinner. And it's our pretend social life today, the environment that we're creating. But yeah, I think realness, to answer you, is required. We're raising him to be real and to see the real world and to experience and to make the choices. And I think that's true for my whole experience, or existence rather, with coaching. I am here to help people be accountable to their own actions.
Right.
And so, people think I'm going to pour a glass of Kool-Aid. And I suppose I help train them to look for the positives and get into that exercised mind, or the belief of controlling your mindset. But I don't pour glasses of Kool-Aid. I think Kool-Aid is created in all of our own worlds based on what we choose to consume,
Right.
period.
Yep.
And that's it. There's days when I have days when I'm not in a great mood. I find myself sometimes gravitating to if I'm home alone in my past life before we were quarantined, I sometimes would pick the tearjerker movie,
Right.
and I'd say, what does that say about myself? Because I'm also analytical, and I'd be like, I must want to cry today,
Yeah.
and have a superficial reason to let a little bit out.
Exactly. Which
So
is good. That's a great point too. I mean, we're not in the middle of, unicorns and rainbows right now. So,
right,
you have to
very
be
true.
smart. And on the other side too, we have a lot of businesses that are looking at coming out the other side, and they need to, do some planning.
Yeah,
And, it's hard to do that kind of planning when you're uncertain.
yeah,
And so having the wisdom to look for trends, and, specifically in the mortgage industry, and we actually were talking before
yeah,
we actually started recording about some instances that are happening, that happened in the industry, that have caused some things to be where they are. And it's important to be able to understand that and to
yeah,
be able to explain that. So can you take kind of a quick
yeah.
second and kind of give us an idea? Because I love how you explained it. It makes perfect sense.
Sure. So I'm spending a lot of time offering public State of the Union type webinars right now, and to my own community, but I'm also offering them free to the public, because I feel like there's so much misinterpretation of economic news. Now, I love tuning in to Barry Habib, and I will tell you, we teach a class here, and did long before the pandemic, called Economic Advisor, as part of our 24 course curriculum. And the reason we taught it is we taught them why, because I understand, being a 30-year vet, you have to be economically aware. And we talked about what's in scope and what's out of scope, and to stay out of the weeds of forecasting, and don't play the game of the market, and, but be the advisor and tell them what they understand. So within that same realm of best practices, it's more important than ever that everybody understand how we got here. Now, we are not going to see, we are seeing some fallout right now. There are companies that are closing, and everybody's trying to understand, and there's a lot of blame being placed on the pandemic. And while that is having effects, I've been taking the time to back the bus up and let everybody kind of look back, like to a month ago, where we were going. There's also a lot of comparisons that are going on to 2008. And while some of the symptoms are similar, totally two different markets. Quickly, I will tell you that, without doing a whole history lesson on '08, that was a consumer-based default rising rate environment that would crash and cause companies, because of the removal of risk-based lending in certain arenas, just completely become, as we know now, the fall of the mortgage industry. And that recovery was 3 to 7 years. That's not where we are right now. We're in a
Right.
robust market.
Right.
We're in a robust market. So I want everybody to understand that all of the stuff we've been seeing, risk, I gave an example. I love to teach by analogy, so just humor me that I'm going to do it this way, because I think it's the
And I
best way to
love
do
that
it.
about you, because you really do an awesome job of being able to do that as an
Thank you.
educator. And that's so important.
Yeah, I think when we think about the actual language we're speaking, we sometimes lose the forest for the trees. I don't know why. So my life's filled with euphemisms and, and analogies, but it works as a teacher. I guess somewhere in my career, I found it desperate to make the point. And so the point I'm going to make, using some analogies, is if you think about racing a race car, there's risk when you're on the racetrack racing with other race cars at the speed that you normally go. If you go too slow, well, that's a risk. You could get in an accident. You could get run over. You're not doing it safely. But at the same time, if you go too fast, you could have an accident. So we could say in both of those scenarios, you have someone going fast. And isn't that the point of the race, right?
Right.
And yet there's risk there. And there's also risk over here. So two types of risk
Right.
of getting in it. But look at that. Look at what I'm saying. both could cause the same result, a car accident. So when we look at 2008, car accident, right? Kind of over there, but it was like we totaled the car. Okay. And today in this market where we're at, it's like a fender bender. And so I hate to minimize the tragedies that we're going to see occur in this market right now, but we did not get here because of the pandemic. And hear me out. I basically explained earlier that the pandemic is like the tree that fell on our broken crash car,
Right.
but our car crashed not because the tree fell on it. That's the pandemic, but it crashed because of the risk that we were in weeks ago. And so if you can imagine, I again, another analogy I used was if you had a kid that came to you on Mondays and said, Mom, Dad, I need $20 for lunch this week. And you did that on repeat week after week. And you got used to that. And then one week it was $30 and then it was $40 and it slowly crept up. And then all of a sudden it's like it jumped maybe from $40 to $100. You'd start asking questions like, what are you doing with this lunch money? Is this all going to lunch? You know, that sort of thing. And so what's happening on Wall Street a month ago is when we reached the 400% mark of normal business in December, January, and February, the investors are the mom and dads going, okay, wait a minute, where's this lunch money going? And so while they understand we were in a really great market, they are going to do something based on this risk. This risk I'm explaining, by the way, is the car going too fast, not too slow. This is a great risk. This is a positive risk, let's call it. And so while that market's bulling and everybody's getting refinance money and finally there's equity in homes and all these things are happening, you have an environment over here where the mom or the dad says, okay, Johnny, you'll get your $100 for lunch money, but before I give it, I want you to go get $10 out of your piggy bank and I'm going to hold that 10 and then I'll give you the 100. And of course we're going to ask, why is that? Well, because you're asking me for more, so I'm putting more out. And I know if you have skin in the game, then you're telling the truth. It's kind of like a truth teller. It's giving the license at the bar. So we know you'll come back to pay the bill because you need your license. So I use these analogies because that is called margin call. So we've had tons of margin calls on all kinds of lenders in the last month. And when those margin calls, hefty margin calls, when those margin calls occur, and the risk looks like the exposure is out there and the risk is very high, of course, it makes everybody stop. And we're not talking about Johnny getting $10 out of his bank account now. We're talking about large companies writing millions of dollars in personal assets to assure the investors giving us the money, the capital investors giving us the money, that yes, my skin is in the game. I know there's a lot of exposure here. I know there's a lot of risk. The moment those margin calls happen, there's an artificial raising of the interest rate on one level because you want to slow capacity down.
Right.
So I take one more analogy. I compare that to you have a steakhouse restaurant and you sell it for $49.99 and suddenly everybody in town is selling their filet for $4.99. Well, you lower your price to $4.99. Now you have a line out the door down the street. And at some point, you still only have this restaurant with this many tables. You can put a few more tables in, you can move people faster, but you can't double your restaurant size. So these banks that are trying to handle this capacity have one thing to do. I'm going to be the $8.99 filet mignon. And my regular customers are still going to come here because they love our service and our people and who we are and what we are and all of that. And we're probably going to lose the line out the door. But are we really losing anything? Because is the service suffering because we're pushing everybody through these tables so fast trying to get the guy in the back that's brand new to our company? So the last part of this is the fact that no one is ever going to understand, the customer never understands when the Fed says they lowered to zero and then that doesn't equate to the mortgage rate, right?
It's not what we're talking about. It's apples and oranges.
Apples and oranges. And that's because, when you go into 7-Eleven and you buy something off the shelf, there's a price that 7-Eleven paid for. And then, of course, there's the handling and the shipping and the selling, and there's got to be some profit there. And so there's a margin between the Fed rate and the mortgage that has cost assessment in it, risk assessment in it. And because we control those levers, the loan originators are left to have to explain all this. So what I want everybody to understand is all of that fast car racing that created the risk, all of the increased volume that created the risk, the margin calls, and the environment we were in is why the interest rates came up. The capacity of serving that many people in the restaurant is why the rates came up. The margin of difference in the rate is because we've got to operate and run our companies.
Right.
And when you tie that all together, it has very little to do with the pandemic. The pandemic creates an obstacle. So that is kind of like throwing the log down in the road where the car has to go around. Of course, buyers might lose their job and they're in the process of doing a mortgage, and now we can't verify their employment.
Right.
Do I think in 60 days we'll have some sort of credit addendum reform? Probably, because they've already said no more evictions or foreclosures during this time. They'll probably do the same with mortgage delinquency. I'm sure of it, because this is an act of God. So, that's a little bit of an economic lesson. I have that on repeat right now. I think the more confident we get as mortgage experts and real estate experts in our field, our ability to translate that to the customer. And then the last part is my gift to anyone listening right now. As soon as we get over the pandemic hill, so we may still be stuck in our homes, but now CNN or anyone is reporting the end's in sight, 2 or 3 weeks. We have people recovering. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel. The moment that happens, all of the mortgage companies are going to see volume go straight back up. Customers will get renewed faith again. And guess what's going to still be there? The racetrack, the race cars, all of the things. This is not 2008, guys.
Right.
So here's what I tell professionals. Don't think like 2008, because those of you that get deer in the headlights or just completely stop, you're going to be getting back in a line of people. And there's going to be some professionals that stayed soothing to their clients and referral partners, kept the process flowing, kept collecting docs, kept taking applications. And even now we saw some of the relief yesterday. The rates, that volume is normalizing and the rates started to come back down. And all kinds of locks occurred across the industry again yesterday. I think those professionals in our field that stay calm, understand what I'm saying, and do good work right now are going to grab market share from these other people.
Absolutely. Yep, I agree. Yeah, so, keep in touch. Use your marketing, whatever you're doing. If you don't have a marketing plan, put a marketing plan together. I've been doing webinars on how to create videos and do virtual meetings, and you want to be in front of your customers right now. So everything that you can do as far as reaching out is important, because, yeah, you're right. This is not the same as what we went through in 2008. Market was good. This slowed us down. And I love the analogy as far as the log in the road. And that's really what it is. So the most important thing right now is stay safe and, stay at home, but also utilize the time you have. So, get into, you have a great online coaching program. So you have the time. Guess what? Turn off the TV and invest in yourself.
That's exactly what we're
those are
saying
the
over
things
here.
that people should be doing. I've got Steve Sims is actually one of my calls that I'm doing today as well, and a good friend of ours, and he also has an online coaching program. So I registered for that. It's like, you know what?
Yes,
I'm going to invest in myself and look for those people that can help you to grow, because we will be through this in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it is. And you will look back and say, how did I use my time?
That's right.
Did I use my time wisely?
100% accurate. Yeah.
Absolutely.
What can you do? I got back all kinds of commuting time because my son's school is about 45 minutes from here. And I have 15 extra hours in my week. And so I am, I've cleaned some closets. I've made contributions to the company. I pulled up some projects that got set aside 6 months ago. So I'm investing in my future. I picked up a couple of books at night that I had been wanting to read. And listen, there's some true silver lining here. I'm talking to my 70-something-year-old dad that's never, ever had this happen. And he's like, your mom's going stir crazy. And I'm like, look, we are in comfy homes with heat and hot water and food. We are far from roughing it as a society. I do feel for, the paycheck to paycheck people. And I say this, I think we can all band-aid our family's safety right now. I
Hmm.
looked around a week ago and I said, if somebody's going to be stuck in their home for a month, then who in my group is alone? And there was a few people, and you know, it's, you do what you can. My older sister has been battling lung illness for years, and she's been in a hospice, and God bless her, she's doing better than she had been. She's really on her deathbed a couple of years ago, not to be, super sad, but true. And so she's been in assisted living. Well, they're in complete lockdown because they're a high risk facility, and
Right.
nobody can visit her. So
Right.
I have added a morning and an evening call to my daily routine,
Right.
because those calls are kind of what's keeping her going.
Yeah.
She can't have visitors, she can't leave. And so she's kind of in that position where it's like, the morning and afternoon call, are really making all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
And so I just say, look around. Who around you needs that call right now?
Right.
Um,
Or
who,
who can you take a meal to? You can,
that's
in
right.
the meal that you're making, like we have a woman who lives across the street from us who lives by herself and is very, very concerned. Like I was outside doing the yard work with her mask on yesterday.
Right.
And so, we make extra food.
Yeah.
My neighbor across the street, she works for Intel. She did not have Logitech camera, video camera to do her Zoom meetings. And, I've got a shit ton of them. So it's like,
Yep.
I'll drop that off. So I took a bottle of wine and that and dropped it off, and she exchanged for a bottle of wine. And it's like, those kind of things. So I think this gives us the opportunity to be able to really become human again and take time. Bill Hart put a video out yesterday that I absolutely loved, that he called, instead of isolate, we solate. And so take the I out of it and put we into it. So just like what you're doing, calling your sister in the morning and afternoon.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that is something she looks forward to immensely.
Yeah, and I just think the silver lining is a lot bigger than we think. I think life gets too fast paced sometimes. I had 9 trips that got canceled, and when
I
I
know, me
stared
too.
when I stared down my April and May before this happened, I was like, okay, let's go, let's do it. I'm on. You have to get there mentally to do what we do. And then when the button went off, for me to get back family time, I mean, there's just a silver lining here.
Yeah.
I think everybody needs to embrace it. I haven't heard a lot of negative stories about people spending more time with their family. I've heard a lot of people saying, I'm loving this time with
Right.
my family. And so I think if we as a society can embrace, we always talk about stopping to smell the roses, but the earth doesn't stop turning, and the
Right.
merry-go-round does not stop to let us off. We have to jump on and off our own lives. So for one moment, it stopped,
Yeah.
and we're there right now. So what can we really embrace? I just think there's going to be a lot that is positive that comes out of this.
Right.
And I pray for those families that are affected, because I'm
Yes.
sure the experience for those that are losing loved ones, and that is happening, is completely different than
Right.
those of us that haven't been affected. And we're nowhere near done with this yet.
No.
So I'm not going to say anything that jinxes myself into believing, God, bless us all, but we don't know yet the totality of this situation. And so I think we just have to stay doing smart things and helping one another. And so I'll tell everybody that's listening to this call right now, Ginger always shows up, and she's consistently there. And she's always spreading the word, the good word. And I've sat many times in the audience, many places across the nation when she's speaking, and I'm always motivated by her words, and her tactics are so authentic and inspiring and touching. So,
Sweet.
I have watched the other ones that you've done. I think it's great that you put this in place. I'm glad to be one of those people. And I extend my email to anyone to reach out. It's info@visionyoursuccess.net, because if anybody needs anything, we have a whole team of coaches over here. We have life coaches, we have health and wellness coaches. We are here to assist during this time. We're happy to help people. We know this can be a hard time from a mental illness standpoint, depression, isolation, all of those things. And we are going to be here for this industry and population at large to make sure that everybody everybody stays safe and sound and secure. And
Right.
so that's our offer. And
Well,
please
thank
take
you.
us up on it. Yeah.
Yep. And thank you so much for all you do. I absolutely love everything you do. And I look forward to seeing you again in the next couple months when we can
Well,
speak on stage together and be able to continue to do what we're doing. So thank you so much, Christine. We have information that's listed down below, so make sure and do that. And of course, subscribe and like and make your comments. And thanks for listening to this episode of Flatten the Curve, Not the Spirit.